But yeah, then European holidays are all over the place. So
Are they?
yeah, but my kids are not off until beginning of March.
Okay. So
And then yeah, so we've got, but there are loads of, I live in near a ski resort. So like there's loads of British families out at the moment.
oh, that's amazing. Do you ski?
I do, yeah. My husband has the reason why we live here is because my husband runs a sort of luxury ski chalet holiday company across the Alps. And they're based here in Switzerland. And so yeah, we moved here to be in the mountains and for his business, really.
Sounds so gorgeous. Is it as gorgeous as it sounds? Because that just sounds idyllic.
It is pretty good. I mean, it as in terms of a lifestyle, it's really good. And we definitely we used to live in London doing the corporate thing, and we had this is our version of success. Like we had this vision and a dream of move to Switzerland, start your own business, da 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 da. So we're very much living that lifestyle. But there are things that come along with it that you maybe wouldn't anticipate. So like the education system in a rural area, for example, for your kids. And, our kids were babies when we moved, we weren't really thinking about schooling. And we thought, oh, well, schools will be fine. It's Switzerland, like must have a great education system. And they do. But, the more that we get into it and the older our children get, we realize the limitations, which there are in any country. So yeah, they're always going to be like pros and cons anywhere you live, but it is it's a lot better, I think, for me than living. I mean, I'm a total city person, so it's I'm still that from being that kind of person. It is lovely living here versus in London.
In the mountains. Oh my goodness! Oh, it just sounds amazing. It really does. And I know what you mean. I'm a city person too. But I love to get away to the country. Yeah, the mountains sounds idyllic.
Yeah, and I think when you've got children, then you appreciate it so much more. So when we do go back to London, quite we will go over half term and go back to London for that week. But but when I'm there, I'm just like, I'm so grateful not to be raising the kids there.
Yeah. So who do you work with when you work? I mean, I guess your work is pretty much online all of the time, most of the time.
I would say 90% of my clients are online. Yeah. And then they are predominantly in Europe. So maybe the UK, France, and Switzerland, I'd say. And then I have worked with clients in the US, and sometimes that works. But what I've actually done this year is pared down my working hours.
Okay.
So I used to take calls in the evening, especially during the lockdowns and the whole pandemic, where my family situation was a little bit more flexible. I could take those calls in the evening. But now things have gone a bit, returned a bit more back to normal. I've had to pare down my working hours. And so for me to take clients in the US is a little bit more tricky.
Absolutely. And actually there's enough clients on more or less on your time zone anyway, isn't there? You don't have, I think what people tend to, I have conversations like this with clients where they feel that they need to take on anyone across the world. And of course, the challenges that the time zones have, with time zones when that happens, it kind of, it brings up all kinds of questions about what your boundaries are and where you actually want to be, when you want to be working. And there are enough people in the world to work with. Fortunately, now that we can all work on the internet and anywhere in the world, you don't have to be working with people in Australia and the US and Switzerland and the UK on the same day. You just don't have to be doing that, do we?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that I've spent sort of a chunk of my life in North America as well as in Europe. and so I can bridge all the cultures, and my accent can change and all, you know, that stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But generally, there is a cultural difference, I think, as well, that you are working with when you are working with people in the States. And, you know, so I generally feel more aligned anyway to people who are based in Europe, even if they may be American and based in Europe, because I've had quite a few of those clients. But, you know, but there's generally, yeah, just a different cultural sense, I think, that is yeah, easier, or I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm really curious about that. What do you, because I know what I think are those differences, but what do you think are the cultural differences that you've noticed working with clients or speaking to people in North America compared to European clients?
Yeah, I had one really interesting just this past week, where I was in a conversation with someone, and they expressed their frustration that I hadn't responded to them immediately. So they were messaging me, and I hadn't responded immediately. And I was just, you know, I apologized. I said, I'm not on social media every day. I'm not on Facebook Messenger every day. It's just how we were messaging. And, you know, but I do generally get back to people within 24 hours. And she was just, you know, couldn't believe that, and was, and so I think that's one of the cultural things of like the whole immediacy thing. Like, you've got to get back to, if I've sent a message to you, you've got to get back to me, or you've got to be working all the time, you know. And I think that I think in Europe people have, even if it's not always so clear, people have better boundaries in terms of work-life balance, or are more conscious and aware of, you know, do I want to be responding right away, or, you know, maybe don't feel that need as much. I think obviously it depends on the person, but yeah, I think that like that's one example. And also I just find in Europe people are more, it's a gross generalization, but maybe they come across, I guess, as more authentic. So it's not necessarily looking for the shiny object of like, oh, this is going to be the quick fix. You know, I think people know, especially in the kind of work that you and I do, people know that it's going to take a little bit more to get the results that they want. And it's not just this like, I'm going to pay a lot of money and get this quick fix and everything will be fine. And I generally feel that in the States, there's a lot of marketing that's like, here's a quick fix. And then like your problems are going to be solved.
Yeah, totally.
You know, that kind of marketing doesn't work in this part of the world. I think because people are just a bit more like realistic and just say, well, I know that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Or if maybe it will work, but I'm slightly skeptical.
I think so too. I think there's I mean, I certainly read marketing with a large dollop of skepticism, as I'm sure you do as well. And I think my first coach was American. She was very, very New York. She was wonderful. And some of the things that she would use for marketing that she would suggest that I take on, I just knew wouldn't work for a European market. I knew that it wouldn't work for a UK market because they were often a lot more, I guess, brash, it might be a word, I don't know, but just kind of in your face, I'm going to fix your problems today. And I think that works for a US market. For some reason, I honestly don't know why that difference exists, but I think it does. I totally agree with what you're saying. Whereas when people say to me, I just hate to be salesy, I don't want to be salesy, I don't want to say all this stuff that you're supposed to say. And I think what they mean by that is they're thinking of that US style marketing, I think. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, the more sort of in your face, sales tactic, the things that sound slimy.
Yeah.
Sound too good to be true, I guess.
We want to talk to humans.
Yeah, for sure.
Who understand us a bit more. Yeah. And I'm interested to to know what it is. So tell us a little bit about what it is you do with your clients. What journey do you take them on, and what kind of results do they get?
Yeah, so I'm a business mentor and life coach. I work primarily with women who are growing a service-based business, so coaches or professionals. And I get them to a place where they're often already started by the time they've come to me. So they've been working on their business, growing, trying to get clients and figure out, their place in the whole business world. And they're generally really good at what they do, but they're getting in their own way in some aspect. And it could be, a lot of times it's mindset type things that they're unaware of. So maybe they are procrastinating, so not doing the things that actually make the difference and diverting their attention to other things, or such as or overlearning. So they're, taking lots of courses and programs and, watching other people on the internet, but not actually doing anything. Or oftentimes overthinking. So not taking decisions for themselves, which is a big one. So just and I know we're going to talk about pricing, but that's one of the big ones, is just constantly questioning, what is your pricing? What is your pricing? Is it the right offer? Changing things up and not actually taking a decision. And the other way it can show up also is overworking. So just being busy. So staying really busy and feeling really busy, but again, not really stopping to think, am I busy with the right things, and do I really want to be busy, and why am I keeping myself so busy, if that makes sense?
Totally. Yeah. I wonder if some of that comes from the transition that I know you and I have both worked in corporate for years before having our own business, and lots of other people do as well. Whether some of that comes from, well, I'm at work, so I'm working. It's time for a work day now. So you kind of it's easy to fill that day with busy work without switching the way that you think from when you had a job to everything I do now has to move the needle for me. And you don't have to do busy work for hours and hours every day. You just need to do the things that move that forward. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It is a really tricky mindset shift to make for a lot of us who have, most of us come to this having worked for someone else previously. So whether that's in corporate or another, area. And so we are with this mentality of time equals money, working means a certain, it looks a certain way. If we're not sitting at our computer or, typing something, it's maybe not work. So yeah, it's really hard to make that transition, I think, for a lot of people, and it takes a lot of intentional work on yourself, and the willingness to be uncomfortable, because if you have, especially if you've been successful in another career or corporate career, then you are used to being quite busy, and you're not used to necessarily having time and space to sit, and that can feel really uncomfortable, right? The quiet moments when you're used to being busy can feel very uncomfortable, and it can bring up a lot of feelings that we often don't want to feel. And so we'll keep ourselves busy, right? We'll just keep going because it's we just don't want to feel this, whether it could, could be imposter syndrome, or, just self-doubt, or, any one of these feelings, or even boredom, something as simple as that we just don't want to feel. And so we'll keep on that treadmill and keep going, even though what we're doing is not necessarily the thing that moves the needle forward, or the thing that's actually productive for us to do.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think that feeling of, well, I'm working hard, I'm tired at the end of the day, I'm doing all the things I need to be doing without necessarily stopping to work out what those things are, and whether we needed to have been working hard all that day, or perhaps only half of the day would have been completely fine. What would you recommend if someone's, so say someone is in that position where they don't want to sit in that quiet and they feel very uncomfortable? What do you recommend to your folks to do in that situation?
I think the most powerful thing you can do is to allow that. So in that, when you're sitting there and you're feeling uncomfortable, what you want to do is get up and do something, right? And so you have this urge to like stay busy, to do something. And the most powerful thing you can do in that moment is to actually allow the urge, to allow the feeling of, I really want to get up and do something. I really need to feel like I'm doing something, and not actually listen to that thought, like to let it pass. You know, to show yourself, oh, I can sit here with that feeling, that really uncomfortable sensation of I need to be doing something, you know, and allow all the thoughts that come up in that moment of, I'm not being productive if I'm not doing something. I'm not working if I'm not doing something. What are people going to think of me? What's my husband going to think of me if he sees me having a cup of tea and not working? You know, all the rubbish thoughts that our brain produces that's causing us to think I need to be doing something with my time, or you know, oh, I've got so much to do. It could be time related, right? I've got so much to do, or if I don't do this, then I won't have, I'll have more to do later on, or, you know, we tell ourselves so many different things. And generally when we're resisting that feeling, it's because we don't want all that narrative to come up as well. So all these thoughts then be generated by you just sitting and allowing that.
Yeah, and the worst thought perhaps when you're having those moments is, what if I'm not doing enough? What if I'm not doing enough, and what does that make me if I'm not doing enough?
Yeah. And and then exactly what it means about your identity, who you are, all of that stuff. And but what you learn when you can allow the urge, right? So allow the urge of like, I need to do something, but you don't actually, is that you begin to see that all these rubbish things that your brain is offering up of like, am I enough? Or, you know, what does this mean about me? Or what are other people going to think? All of that stuff, you can allow that to pass and nothing actually changes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you can see, oh, I don't need to be busy. I'm still the same person. I'm still worth it. My business can still move forward. Right? Like it's so powerful just to allow it, and to allow, you know, allow your brain to just go on its little tirade, and then come out the other end of it.
I think I talk to people a lot about the relationships at home when you have a partner or a husband who is working. Maybe they're bringing in more money than your business is yet at this time. Often that's the case. And I was in this position when I started out, and my partner, he has a job. He works long hours. And it made me think about that when you said, oh, if your husband sees you having a cup of tea and you're just sitting there, I mean, gosh, that feeling of, oh, I used to feel that I had to check in with him and let him know what I was doing, like justify, oh, I've done this, this, and this, and now I'm sitting with a cup of tea. So that's why this is what it looks like. I'm not doing anything, but I've been doing lots of things. And he would say every single time, I don't care, like, it's fine. It's all right if you're having a cup of tea. And of course it was. So yeah, that really, that made me laugh thinking about that, because it is fine. Of course it is. Yeah.
And if you're at the office, you would have had a cup of tea, you would have had a break, and
totally,
you know, and maybe even a chat to someone. But when we're working on our own, somehow we think, you know, we do it, but if someone catches us doing it, or, you know, or we feel guilty doing it when we do.
Or we don't do it. Or people, you know, I know plenty of people who don't take breaks, who just don't allow themselves to do that, especially when they're trying to fit in their work between the school hours which actually gives you quite a short time. So where does that relate to? So that's sort of sitting with your uncomfortable feelings and just being okay to have a cup of tea. Where does that relate to that feeling of, or maybe a situation you're in where you need the clients, you need the money? How do you sit and feel uncomfortable and be okay with those breaks? How would you say to cope with that need, that lack of, well, I need more money, I need more clients, but I'm having a quiet time? What happens then?
I think sitting in that quiet space allows you to feel sufficient, right? So if you are feeling like, I need to get more clients, I need to make more money, I don't have enough, that is that sensation of lack. And that energy is not going to be helpful for you to get clients. So no matter what you do from that energy, all the action that you take from the thought of like, I don't have enough clients, I need to make more money, they're generally not going to be the actions that are going to get you the clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so allowing yourself to sit in that space and be quiet and take the breaks and feel sufficient, because what happens is when you sit in that uncomfortableness and you come out at the other end, you realize that I'm okay. I can take this break. Nothing has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what you might find is that you've had some amazing ideas, or, you start to build belief in yourself that I can do uncomfortable things and I will be okay. I can take a break and look after myself and I will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
From that place, you start to feel sufficient and have belief in yourself so that you can go out and say, okay, I can go and find clients, but I don't need them to give me the sense of sufficiency. I can give that to myself.
Do you think there's a detachment that needs to be made between almost your self-worth and how many clients you have signed up and how much money? Those two things are so often linked when you're a solo business person, when you're so reliant on your business to bring you money, those and to give you confidence as well. And those things are so linked. When I speak to people, and this is my experience going back a couple of years, that's so linked to actually how you feel, how many clients you have signed up. It is completely linked to your self-confidence, to your self-worth, how you feel when you wake up in the morning, the language you use when you're talking about your business. And how do you make that detachment? How do you recommend that people divide those things?
And it's so interesting that you raise this, because I do think that for many of us, it is we associate one with the other, or we can't disassociate them. Mm. And this is where I think that men and women are very different. And so men can go out there and build a business and have, 1,000 failures before they have any success, and make it not mean anything about them. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't take it personally. They're just like, oh, I'm experimenting. Here we go again. Another idea. Off we go. And I'm generalizing, obviously, but, whereas women, we do take it so personally, right? We go like, this is all about me. I'm the failure. Mm. It's not my business is a failure. This idea is a failure. It's I'm a failure. Mm-hmm. And that is what stops us from creating the success that we want, is because we are associating one with the other. So it really is it's all the stories that you're telling about yourself and your business, and starting to see them as two separate entities. So really, I think affirmations have a place. Don't think they're everything, but it's thinking about, how am I valuable just as I am? How am I a person? Who am I without this business? What is my identity? What makes me a worthwhile person? right? And answering those questions for yourself,
Yeah.
and then looking at your business and saying, okay, what is this business like? What is the value of this business? What is the value of my service or my offer that I'm putting out there? And how is that valuable even without me?
Mm.
Right. And then
Okay.
when you can answer like, oh, you know, this service is really valuable by itself. And everything I'm doing in my business, say to find clients, for example, the marketing that I'm doing, the sales skills, all of that is just experimentation. Like I can fail loads of different ways. And it has nothing to, you know, this value that I've seen over here, like it still exists regardless of what I do over here.
I love that. And I think it's really sometimes about what language we use as well, isn't it? So actually using the phrase I can fail, you know, maybe even that takes on the belief of, well, it's completely, the failure is me, it's my failure, rather than it's the idea's failure, it's the business's failure. I'm still me without the business. It's maybe a different way of looking at it that some people don't even try, I guess. And thinking of the things that work about the business, the things that work about the offer as separate to what's great about you as a person is, I guess, interlinked with that, isn't it? That's so important.
And of course, you know, especially if you're the person providing the service, like you're an integral part of your offer, right? Like who you
Sure.
are and all of that.
Mm.
But if people are saying no to you, for example, they're not saying no, you know, no, you're a horrible person, I don't want to work with you. You know, and I think that's what we sort of often interpret. We're saying, oh, I must be a terrible person, or I must not be valuable enough for someone to work with me. But it's not that at all. It's, you know, it's seeing that, oh, maybe when we interpret things to, when we interpret our failures as a reflection of us, we don't get the same lessons from it as if we interpret it as a failure of our business and what we're trying to do, right? So if we interpret it as a failure of our business, we're more likely to see it as like, as a science experiment. I tried this, it didn't work. What do I need to change? Why did it not work? Right? Why did this person say no to me? Do I need to learn? Do I need to, you know, change my messaging? Do I need to have a different, you know, learn how to do sales better? Did I not address, you know, their concerns about, you know, whether they could have the results that I'm offering? All of those things. But when we see it as a reflection of our value and we take it personally, we just can't see any of those lessons. We just think, oh, it's me, I'm rubbish, you know, I don't do sales.
Yeah, and I think that's also linked to what you were saying before about men and women taking things, sort of approaching things in a different way. Because I think as women, we are raised to need to be liked. And there's a really good book called Nice Girls Don't Get Rich by Lois P. Frankel. Do you have this? Have you read it? It's really good. And one of the things that she talks about is the difference between the way that boys and girls are raised, and that girls, even now, although, you know, things are obviously gradually changing, girls tend to be raised with very with so much importance placed on relationships, friendships, being a good host if someone comes to the house, being friendly, being someone who people can confide in, being liked. And boys, not so much. You know, they are raised to be that in some ways, but much more emphasis is always put on girls, and historically has been on girls and women. And the result is that when you're in this situation and somebody says no to you when you are trying to work with them, that as women, we take it so personally. We take it so personally because we want to be liked, because that's what we're supposed to be. And maybe that's it goes in some way to answer why perhaps men and women take those failures in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just having the awareness can be really helpful, right?
Yeah.
So everything, and I like to think like the first few years of your business is a massive learning experience on so many different dimensions.
Oh, yeah.
But on that one in particular, you are really learning, to separate yourself from your business, to figure out who you are without your business, and to see yourself as, as valuable, but just as you are. And I think that awareness, when we go through these experiences and we get people saying no, or we put our message and, or you put a social media post and no one, responds or whatever, any of those experiences, raises all these thoughts inside your head, which are so useful for us to just become aware of like, what do I think when no one comments on my post? What do I think when that person says no? What is coming up for me? Because without those experiences, maybe those thoughts wouldn't appear. And then you wouldn't have the awareness. Yeah, they're still there. Exactly.
They're waiting to be triggered in us. But it's a huge life lesson, isn't it? Those first few years for sure. Where you just have to separate those two things. Like this isn't that people don't like me. And actually, not everyone has to like you. And that's another lesson to learn, isn't it? It's okay. Some people won't, and that's all right.
Yeah.
It's not about that.
And it is also like, even when you're thinking about your clients, so say you're already working with clients, it may be in their best interest or service to them for you to do things that make them not like you very much.
Like set up boundaries that.
Yeah, or just say things, as a coach, I think we often have to say things that risk the relationship. It risks our client getting angry with us because we're saying something that maybe they don't want to hear. Right. But it's it's in service to them that we say it. It's not about making them like us. And it's like, what's going to get them the result? What's going to get them that transformation? And if that means risking the relationship, then that's what you do to that transformation. I think so often we are so afraid of, if I say this, my client's not going to like me, and then I'll lose the client. And again, we're coming from that place of like, it's about us,
it's not about them. Yeah.
So it's, I'm going to lose this client. I can't afford to. I really need that money. And so we are not as good of a professional as we could be because we're thinking about that rather than what does this person really need from me?
Has that ever happened? Have you ever had to tell somebody something that they really didn't like and they reacted to, quite angrily? Has that happened to you?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think I'm pretty sure I've said things that have made my clients feel uncomfortable and had to really take a moment to reflect on something. I don't remember a client getting angry with me as such, but I know that. And so that's the other thing, I guess, to remember is that sometimes we think this is going to make them angry, but it doesn't actually.
And it doesn't, because they're working with you because they want you to see things that they haven't seen themselves, and they want to hear it coming from someone who knows what they're talking about, like you.
Yeah, and they don't want a friend. You're not there to be their friend.
No, totally. No, because their friends are all telling them that they're brilliant and everything's fine, and they know that everything isn't fine, or they wouldn't be working with a coach. Yeah, totally. I love that. So do you have, you mentioned earlier about pricing. And I know that I have lots of conversations with people about pricing. So tell me your experiences working with clients where people struggle with raising their prices or just setting their prices. How do people know what to charge?
Okay, so how do people know what to charge? Is quite a broad.
Okay, so
Well, if I can come at it from the angle of like,
course, yeah.
people often think that their price is the factor that's stopping them getting a sale, or they're questioning it, right? And I guess that's really behind that they're interlinked, those two things, right? So if someone thinks, oh, maybe my price is too much. I saw this the other day, someone talking about, you know, they've raised their price, they think it's too much because all of a sudden they're not getting sales. And they were getting sales at their old price, so maybe it's got to be the price.
Yeah.
Right. And I saw, like, in the spirit of, I don't know, 2 days, I think I saw like 3 posts on the same thing from different people. And I was like, okay, well, that's clearly something that comes up. And what happens is, in that situation, of course, yes, it is your price. If nothing else has changed, you've just changed your price, you've increased it. It is your price that's affecting your sales, but not in the way that you think, right? So it's not the absolute, I'm charging £1,000 now. I used to charge £500. So 1,000 must be too much, right? Because no one's buying. It's not the absolute amount or any value you've set it at. It is all down to how you're thinking about your price. So when it was at 500, you thought, this is amazing. This is so valuable. This is such a steal. It's such a fair price. I'm giving away loads, like they're going to get amazing value for this. You know, you really believed in your offer at that price. And when you raised it to 1,000, all of a sudden, it's not that people can't afford 1,000, or that sometimes it has to do with people in your audience. Maybe your targeting changes as you raise your prices.
Yeah.
But most of the time it has to do with your belief in your offer and your belief in your price. So do you think that you're worth it? Do you think that your offer is worth it? How valuable you believe your offer is at that price. And so when you don't have absolute belief in and confidence in the value of your offer at whatever price you've set it at, it's going to affect your sales. Right? Because you're thinking, you have that doubt inside you, and you're thinking, not really sure if it's worth 1,000. Or how it often comes up is, I'm not really sure someone's going to pay 1,000 for this. Right? It's the same thing. I'm not sure my audience can afford 1,000. And that little bit of doubt comes across in your conversations, you know, in your sales conversations, in your social media posts, however you're putting yourself out there, when you're talking about your offer, that doubt seeps through.
Yeah.
And that energy, people on the receiving end, it may not be about your pricing. They'll just get this sense like, something's not quite right about this. It's not quite for me. You know, and it won't be something, sometimes it can be very obvious, but in most cases, it's something very subtle, you know. And I know it sounds very rude to say it's like your energy, or, you know, but it is sort of that way. It's like, when you're thinking, I'm not sure if my audience can afford this, right? You're feeling a little bit doubtful, for example. So when you're feeling doubtful, the words that you create in your marketing, when you go down to write a social post, for example, or an offer post, the words that you come out with, coming from a place of doubt, it's very different from the words that you create when you come from a place of confidence.
100%. And I think it's also, maybe you're not saying the words enough. So you might not even be inviting people into calls or inviting them to come and work with you, because you may have built up enough confidence to go, okay, well, it's this much. This is what I'm offering. And then maybe holding yourself back from taking that next step, going, do you know what? This is perfect for you. Let's talk. Let's hop on a call. And making those kind of invitations, because you almost don't want to get yourself in that position of then having to justify it face to face to someone. So is there a little bit of that going on as well, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you hit it. It's like you don't do all the things that you would be doing if you absolutely believed in your offer. So you wouldn't be shouting at it, about it from the rooftops. You're not, talking about it everywhere and inviting people in, or thinking about who you know and getting in touch with them and saying, hey, I've got this offer. It's amazing. It's perfect for you. All of that stuff. You don't do that because you have this tiny bit of doubt of, oh, it's going to be a bit too expensive.
It's expensive. Yeah, totally. I like to think of it as if you reduce your prices today, Miki, by half for a week, you would tell everybody about it instantly, because everybody needs to know this because it's such an amazing offer. And then imagine taking that same energy to your normal price offer, to your high ticket offer, even if you just raise the prices. And that energy is totally different, isn't it?
Yeah. And it is about then generating that same energy for your high ticket offer, or, whatever your price that you want to be at, so that it's there when you go out and do your marketing.
Yeah.
And if for some people, especially in the early stages of business, that can be a real stretch. And sometimes you need to think, okay, that's where lowering your prices can be good. So if you've only had like one client and you're like, I don't have any clients, there's only so much belief you can hold on to that you are creating your results until you start to let that doubt seep in. And so sometimes it can be worth lowering your price to a point where you just can sell a bunch of them, to then just create that belief of, yes, I know what I'm doing. I can get the sale. I can serve my clients. I'm a, proper business, all of that stuff, that just gets you going to the point where then you can raise the price to where you perhaps think it should be ultimately. So sometimes we need to take some stepping stones to get there.
Yeah.
Even though we think, okay, no, this really is worth, whatever amount, maybe I do need to half it, just so that I get in there, I'm in the game.
Yeah, so you've got your foot on the ladder. And I think sometimes people are influenced by coaches and material that they see out there that's maybe, several steps above where they are, and think, well, I must aim for that. I'll set my prices around the same, and I will really kind of model everything I do on that person. Whereas actually, it's better to be looking at someone maybe one step or two steps above where you are now, to really see where you can aim for at those beginning stages, because you're not there yet in your mindset, in your confidence.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for years.
Yes, no, totally. Because what happens also is that, say you set your price, at the level you ultimately want it to be, and quite say it's high, or, you're thinking, oh, it's expensive, and you don't sell it. Not only do you start questioning the price, you start questioning everything else, right? Am I good enough? Like, is this my message? You start questioning like everything about your business. Maybe it's the offer. Maybe it's this. You just have no idea what it is that's not working.
And then you can't sit and have your cup of tea and have your husband catch you drinking a cup of tea when you haven't sold your high ticket offer.
It is, yeah. So sometimes you do have to be a bit practical and say, I'm going to lower it just so that my confidence doesn't get eaten away, so that I can sell it. I have the experience, I've got the clients, and then you build that belief in your offer. So, it works. You can do it either way, but I think sometimes I see sometimes like some clients come to me and they're like, I've had one client at this price and then I haven't sold anything for 6 months. And then they are like really grabbing at straws and thinking, trying to change everything. And that's another thing I think that, it may be a female trait as well. Like, looking at everything rather than picking one thing at a time, and trying to like experiment based on one thing. So, I think it's just worth, in that case, it's like, okay, you've only had one client, you've not sold anything for 6 months. Wouldn't it be better to sell, get double the clients that you want to make, but at half the price, so that you're making the same amount of money, than have no clients at this higher price?
Yeah, that makes sense. it's interesting, isn't it, that we do we need to be more scientific in our approach, do you think, instead of throwing everything out and starting again when something isn't working?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think so. I think that I put a huge emphasis on evaluation in your business. So really evaluating what is working, what's not working. And so, when we focus on, okay, what's working, let's do more of that. What's not working, let's tweak those things, rather than like, let's chuck everything out. Say you've got an offer, for example, and okay, it's people are kind of getting results, but they're not. It's not like, let's chuck the whole offer out and start again and redesign a whole new program. It's okay, let's keep the bits of that program that were working and then reevaluate what didn't quite get them results. And I think that's a smarter way to do your business, like just constantly evaluate and tweak rather than just questioning things all the time, because then I think that leads to you feeling a bit of self-doubt or confused or overwhelmed.
Yeah, and it's easy to be overwhelmed, isn't it, with there's a lot of noise out there. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, okay, so if we were to take away one thing from you today about how to get more clients, what would that be? It doesn't have to be one thing, but it might be one thing.
I think the first thing, I think one of the biggest things is practicing belief in yourself, right? Really knowing that who you are, what you're about, just by yourself, with before even thinking about your business, so that okay, whatever I do in my business, it's not about me. Like I am who I am, and I'm enough, and I'm valuable, and all of the rest of it, without whatever I do in my business, so that you feel sufficient and whole before you go out and try and sell anything. Right. So then from there, you're already starting at a higher level. And then, I don't have to get a client to feel like I'm worth it. I don't have to get a client for my husband to see me as an intelligent human being, or for my husband to believe that my business is working. I don't have to do any of these things. Like, I am enough, he believes in me, or I believe in me, without that proof. Because from when you start there, then the energy that you're going out into the world with is very different, right? The mindset that you have is, okay, I'm enough. I know that I'm valuable. I'm worth it. My husband loves me. He doesn't care what I do. He believes I'm going to generate the money one day, all of that stuff. I'm going to go out and serve my audience, the world, whatever, put my value out there. And I know that by doing that, people are going to be attracted to me. Then I think that's already, like, if you can do that, you're miles ahead of a lot of people already. You're setting yourself really solid foundations. Because I think, as we spoke about, a lot of people go out there looking for clients to fill the gap that they have within themselves, to feel like, okay, if I get a client, that means I'm valuable. If I get a client, it means my business idea has legs. They're looking for that validation somehow. And it's so much harder to attract a client when you're seeking that validation. If you can just start with, I don't need any validation. I know already what I'm offering is valuable. I know what I'm really good at what I do, and I can really impact people. And whether or not I get a client today, tomorrow, whatever, doesn't impact that, how I see myself. Then the thoughts that are driving your messaging are going to be so much more powerful as a result.
Love that. That is really powerful. Just that whole package of thinking. And I think, and I find it very calming to speak to you as well, and I'm sure your clients too. So So it's been fantastic to hear your thoughts on all of these things today. Tell me, are you going to go skiing anytime soon? You're in the Swiss Alps. I need to imagine you skiing down the slopes as the Winter Olympics are on.
Oh yeah, Winter Olympics are so good. I think not in the next 2 weeks, as there's half term and the resort is full of tourists, but I will do after that. Yeah. We are so lucky to live where we do and so spoiled that we can avoid the times when the resort is full and and have all the queues and things like that, and can go in the other weeks.
Oh, sounds wonderful. It really does. It really does. And you say you're lucky, but actually it's a life you've designed, and I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much, Miki. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. And if anybody watching this wants to get in touch, will you drop some links below so they can find you in your and how can they find you? What's the best way of getting in touch?
Absolutely. You can get in touch with me via my website, which is mikimaruko.com, or you can find me over on Instagram, and my tag there is I am Miki Maruko. But thank you for having me.
You're
so
welcome.
Fun to talk to you.
Thanks for joining me. Take care. Have a lovely wintry day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.